About a year ago, I decided to quit videography and buy the camera I wanted, not the camera I thought I needed. So I sold my A7 III and ended up picking up a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. Now this is my first experience with a Blackmagic camera and I didn't know what to expect. Things like shooting RAW, for example, or recording to an SSD and building a rig, these were all foreign to me. So if you're also considering moving from mirrorless to a Pocket 4K or 6K, here's my complete workflow from capture to post, which I hope will answer any questions you might have about the switch. Starting with pre-capture, let's take a brief look at some noteworthy physical traits. As you can see, my rig is very minimal and was budget conscious. No matter the budget, however, at the bare minimum, you're going to want an alternative power solution since the LPE6 batteries die quickly. Here I have a Sony NPF solution, it converts it to V-mount. And I use this to power my camera with a D-tap cable. If you're interested in a more detailed breakdown of this relatively budget rig, let me know in the comments below. Another thing you might want to add is an SSD holder since the file sizes will most likely be bigger than what you're used to and SSDs are more cost efficient. And finally, an external monitor and top handle will be immensely helpful when shooting. Most if not all of my parts are from SmallRig and my monitor is the Atomos Shinobi HDMI monitor. So diving into camera settings, I don't know enough to do a deep dive, but the menu is probably the best menu I've personally used to date. Super straightforward and the basic things I need. I guess it's important to note that because I primarily use the external monitor when recording, I make sure I don't have clean feed on and I make sure I don't have director on because I want to see my settings while shooting. I've also set up two presets, one that allows me to switch into 4K DCI 24p and then one set up for 4K DCI 60p. What I do want to go over though are the codecs and corresponding file sizes. I remember not having a sense of how big the file sizes would be and if my current storage workflow could support it. So here we have a 1TB SSD and it's got some files on it. So we're going to format it first. And we do that by tapping on the remaining time, format drive, I format to exFAT, format drive again, format drive again, and we hold it for 3 seconds. I really like the fact that it's difficult to format it, or that there are these protections in place. So format is complete, your drive is ready to use. Now on the screen I'm going to be showing the different recording times available to you depending on the recording mode. You'll notice the menu denotes whether or not your image is being cropped by showing sensor windowed. In UHD, this just means the sides are being cut, the focal length doesn't change. However, in HD, the image is only using the center of the sensor. You can see here that a 4K shot at 100% in an HD timeline looks the exact same as the HD shot. In ProRes, however, there is no crop in HD and the result is much cleaner. Because of this, if I need to shoot 1080, I'll always use ProRes. And honestly, even with Blackmagic Raw, I tend to just shoot 12:1 compression, 4K DCI, and on a 1TB drive again, that gives me about 611 minutes, which gives me peace of mind on the storage front, and I haven't had any complaints about image quality yet, so I think we're good. Now, during capture, I expose using the aperture ring on my Canon FD glass. If I want to change my ISO or my shutter angle, then I press these buttons near the record button on the front and then spin the front dial. I don't use the touchscreen that much other than for setting my white balance. Now this definitely feels like a clunkier process than when using mirrorless where you have more dials that can instantly switch these settings when you turn them. On the Pocket, I always have to press something first and then turn the dial. I usually expose by eye with the custom monitoring LUT on my external monitor, which I had to manually add to the camera. If I'm unsure or if I want to be precise, I use false colors on the Shinobi. Now another thing that was new to me was the dual native ISO and the changing circuit. The base ISO is 400 and the second native ISO is 3200. Things I've noticed is that obviously 400 looks amazing, but when you start to go and hit 800 and you hit 1000, that's when the image starts to really not look great. But if we take a look at the screen here, this is ISO 1000 and this is ISO 1250. You'll notice that there's a significant cleanup in the shadows. And you'll notice that the image has a lot more contrast and a different color tone even. If we're going by paper, you lose dynamic range in the highlights while gaining some in the shadows. Now let's take a look at the shadows in 1250, looks pretty clean. If we move it up to 3200, you'll notice that there's an increase in noise. Because of this, I tend to shoot at 1250 a lot in low light situations and try my best to not go over to minimize noise. The speed booster I use with my Canon FD glass helps a lot here. When I'm actually shooting, if it's not on a tripod or monopod, I'm most likely shooting handheld. I like to rest the back of the camera against my shoulder or chest and grab the camera by its side and cup the bottom and the lens with my left hand. Alternatively, I grab the top handle and rest it against my chest, and for low shots I just let it hang. And when shooting slow motion, I use the HFR button on the back of the camera. This slows down the clip in camera, so when you import it, you won't be able to see it play back in real time. It does record audio in real time, however, with the end portion filled with some random sounds, so if you desperately need to make it play back in real time, speed it up to 250% and then cut the audio where the sped up clip ends. This way the audio will be synced with the video. So if you want to shoot in 4K 60 though, you have to switch your project frame rate from 24 FPS to 60 FPS. Sometimes this can be tedious though, so I just made these two presets to switch between. For file transfer, it's as simple as unplugging your SSD and connecting it to your computer. You'll see the files right away. In order to play back the files, however, you'll need to go to Blackmagic Design's support center and scroll down to latest downloads. Press Ctrl F or Command F on your keyboard and search up Blackmagic Raw to find the latest version of this plugin. This will include the plugin that allows you to bring your files into and work with them in Premiere Pro. You can also check here periodically to see if there are any firmware updates to your camera. As we can see here, we have the latest available download and there's nothing of note for the Pocket 4K, so I actually haven't updated my camera yet. Once we've downloaded the plugins required, we can import or drag the files into Premiere like we would any other file. Quick side note, if you use PluralEyes, then you won't be able to import the BRAW files. You'll have to temporarily change the extension to .mov, but I haven't had good success with the final syncing, so I shoot in ProRes if I know PluralEyes will be a key part of the workflow for that project. After we've imported our files, you might be wondering how raw editing looks like. You simply click on a clip, go to the Effects Controls tab, click on Master, and then change this to Clip. Now you have access to all of these controls. Honestly though, I find this tedious to activate for each clip, so I just do all my grading in Lumetri. If you're going to be using these controls, I haven't yet found a way to copy and paste attributes, and keep in mind that if you change your exposure mid-clip, that these raw controls will affect the entire clip. So if you go from indoors to outdoors in one clip, take note that you can't adjust the settings separately. So if you're a little bit underexposed indoors and overexposed outdoors, changing the raw settings to correct for either one will not correct the other one, and you can't change those settings separate from each other. As for timeline performance, it's notably better than the Sony 4K footage I was playing around with before. Even at 12:1 compression, it's nearly flawless. However, I'm fairly certain that the BRAW format has led to a number of bugs in Premiere. The most consistent one I've seen is that the program freezes and crashes sometimes when I simply double click a file to preview it in the project tab. And that wraps up this video. Hopefully it answers some of the questions you're coming with if you're coming from mirrorless. If not, then let me know and I'll see if I can answer them or make a video about it. As always, thank you for your time. Be healthy. Bye.